Khaldun Chair of Islamic Studies in the School of International Service at American University. High Commissioner, former High Commissioner from Pakistan to the UK and Ireland. According to the BBC, did you pay them or?
Never believe them, they're all communists. Listen to your own politicians.
The world's most influential authority on contemporary Islam. He's taught at Cambridge, Princeton, Harvard, the U.S. Naval Academy, now at American University. Won a number of awards, the Ghandi Peace Award, Pakistan Star of Excellence, and others. Written over, I always say over 20 books, but over, okay. The ones that we know the best, some of the more recent are Journey into Europe, part of his Europe project, a documentary went along with that. Journey into America, a documentary is just about finalized, Frankie. Frankie's his associate and is working on the documentary. The one that I know the best was the Thistle and the Drone. How America's war on terror became a war on tribal Islam or something like that, right? And so that's one I know the best of the three. But he's a poet, a filmmaker. You love the image as well as the written word, don't you? Yeah. A scholar. And as I said last night, he's got the heart of a mystic. And I called you a gentleman's gentleman last night, but really what I should have said, he's a quintessential gentleman. And so anyway, we're really honored. I'm personally honored because I've used your books and your Living Islam film series as texts for myself when I taught Islam. But I'm really delighted and personally honored to welcome Dr. Akbar Ahmed to Plymouth Church. And I'm really grateful to our pastors, Timothy and Ruth, for extending the welcome to you, Akbar, as well. So anyway, he's going to have a couple of opening comments, and then really, I just told him that to work for his breakfast this morning, he's going to subject himself to your questions for the rest of the time. So anyway, please be formulating some questions for him. Culture, politics, poetry and art. He's a man of letters, so he'll be open to answering anything you want to ask. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, let me first of all thank you for that very warm introduction and also for inviting me. I have been to Fort Wayne and I'm speaking on behalf of Frankie Martin, myself, and he's more than just working on the film. He's worked with my books and traveled with me, and he's really one of the great scholars that we produced at American University. So we hadn't come to Fort Wayne and we discussed this because we get lots of invitations, and we said we must go because it's a community I've heard so much about, because my colleague is Michael's son, Andrew, who I believe was married in this church. So we started a correspondence and finally we got the slot in it. Here we are, and we are delighted. And I'm delighted that you come here braving the early morning cold of Fort Wayne, because I think that there could be nothing more important than these conversations. Because, and maybe I'm speaking as a mystic who embraces all of humanity. Mystics must embrace all of humanity. I think there's nothing more important than just conversing and hoping to understand each other. I begin with the assumption of another colleague who didn't live very long. He met an unhappy fate. I refer to Socrates. Socrates gave many great statements that are still with us. But one of his most striking statements, and I want you all to remember this, because very often we forget how little we really know. Socrates was told, "You are the greatest scholar in the world." And he replied, he said, "The only thing I really know is that I know nothing." And it struck me when I first read this 20 years ago. I said, how can Socrates say that? He knows everything. Now recently I began to think, and I really began to feel that, my God, he's so right. Because very often people use very generous expressions of my work, and not only the BBC, but the whole range, including American commentators. And I realized, I really don't know much. I'm on a path of discovery. I'm constantly learning. So this trip was also in that spirit, to come here and learn about you, your community. And of course, this wonderful name, because our Journey to America project has a huge segment on Plymouth. And the travelers on the ship, the Mayflower, and I see a Mayflower room, I see a Plymouth chest, we are fascinated. And in this chapel, I want to share with you that we got so excited about doing this America project. And remember, I was not a historian or a political scientist of America. So I really knew very, very little. I admired the founding fathers, I knew of the great Abraham Lincoln, we all loved him and admired him, the giant. And of course, more recent figures like the Kennedys and Martin Luther King Jr. But when I started the America project, I wanted to take it seriously, because I didn't want an American reader to open the book and say, this guy doesn't really know our history. Because how can he study Muslims in America without understanding who we are? So I said, I will become more American than American. Studying. And Americans won't know the kind of information we are going to pick out, and they'll be grateful, hopefully, and not do to me what the people of Athens did to Socrates when I present them this study. So I sent off my stoutest researcher, Frankie Martin. I said, Frankie, that's the library. Disappear, I don't want to see you again. Until you emerge with the exact details of every traveler on the Mayflower. Their ethnicity, their education, their background, because we hear all kinds of rumors. Here these pilgrims, they came, spiritual light radiating out of them, and suddenly they gave us this vision of it. Who were they? Why were they really here? What did they bring to the table? And I'm a Cambridge man, he's a Cambridge man. We were not surprised to see that the leaders of that ship were all Cambridge men. Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm saying they weren't just any old person, they were brilliant scholars coming out of Cambridge, wanting a new version of life, a new version of society. That's the beginning of America, before the founding fathers. So Plymouth meant something. It was symbolic, but to us it meant something after the study. Then I sent him off 6 months later when he staggered out of the library. I said, now sit down and do a similar exercise for the authors of the Declaration and the Constitution. Now, how many of you know who they were? I'm not talking about names. What was their background? And you know, I was so excited as an anthropologist to find that there was a shift from the authors in the first round declaration, mainly Jefferson, to the Constitution. Were they Welsh? Were they Scots? Were they English? All this mattered. But they were bringing a certain vision with them. If it was the English, it would be more inclined towards the Church of England, it would be more centrist, it would be more majority dominance, strong center, impulsively in their DNA. If it was independence and more sensitive to other ethnic groups, it would be the Welsh or the Scottish. Why? Because they had been at the receiving end. They're coming here, they want a new society, they don't want to repeat the mistakes. All this is then reflected in the Constitution. The right to bear firearms, which is such a hot debate in America. And it is alarming when you open the newspapers or see television, and every day, it's not even once a year, every day 5 people killed, 3 people killed, 6 people killed. Who's killing who? Americans are killing Americans. Where is it coming from? And what can we do about it? One argument is ban the firearms altogether or reduce the accessibility, all kinds of debates which you're seeing, and very passionate. Where does this come from? Where does this come from? We know it's in the Constitution. Does anyone know where it's coming from? It's coming from John Locke, a great English philosopher. He's a giant, he's one of the great English giants of philosophy, who impresses Jefferson. And Jefferson is the giant. You know, all these great, extraordinary founding fathers, Washington and all the others, but Jefferson towers over them all. Jefferson picked this up from Locke. absolute right to bear for. Why? Because England is going through their civil war, and he does not want this to happen again. And why the English are suffering is because Cromwell comes along, he brings his army, the king's army is fighting them, people are killing each other. He said there must be none of that. So the individual must have the right to protect themselves, which is our argument today. Now he didn't envisage the time when each one of us would have an arsenal at home and we could just go out and start shooting our neighbor because we don't like it or belongs to a different group or you gave me a look or these incidents of road rage. I've served, and Terry understands what this means. I was in charge of the tribal areas in Pakistan and in charge of Waziristan, which is considered the most turbulent area in the world. It's literally the most turbulent area in the world. Terry, that's right? See, not gravely, because the Waziristan area at one stage had more troops, British troops, and the British were occupying that area, than the rest of the Indian subcontinent. And when we were trying to locate Osama bin Laden, people said he's in Waziristan, that became the highest site of drone attacks in the world. So that was my background. That's the background I'm coming from. And I understood that even in these turbulent times, the most critical thing is to reach out and talk and move things forward. And if everyone has arms, and this is the argument we are presenting to you, it'll be chaos, people will be shooting and killing each other. Except in a place where we all respect the right to bear arms, but not to go around gunning people, because they will be accountable. In Waziristan, you can certainly shoot someone. That's the law of the land. But the moment you do that, the council of elders will meet and they will punish you. They will punish you severely. You can't get away with it. Some people will run away, some people will go to Kabul, but you cannot get away with it. Now what I'm finding here, it's almost immune. It's immunity. Shoot someone. It's happening every day. The campus is not safe. The campus, which is sacrosanct. Cinema houses are not safe. You know, every day you hear something, 4 killed, 5 killed, 3 killed. Who's killing them? African American, white people, brown people, everyone. I don't think brown people have really been involved. Once they discover the gun, I'm sure they just behave like everyone else. That's what being American is all about today. So I find that in my studies, in my wanderings, I'm becoming more and more like Socrates. I'm really realizing how little I know and how little I can communicate to you. And the only thing I can do is share some of my knowledge and hope that your knowledge and your wisdom will, in a sense, echo that and we can continue to develop those ideas. One idea in particular that Michael wanted me to share with you, and it's a very inspiring idea. And in a sense, to me, it embodies the very essence of being American. There's a raging debate today about being American, and our study project is about America. It's about America. What does it mean to be American? Now, if I ask each one of you, as I did when we traveled to America for the project, each one of you will give me a slightly different answer. You're not going to give me the same answer. When we asked African Americans, what did it mean to be American? Did your ancestors land here on Plymouth Rock? They invariably give me the answer of Malcolm X. And who knows the answer of Malcolm X? You're in the Plymouth Church, you should know the answer. He said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. See, it's a very powerful, I mean, you and I understand what it means, but to outsiders it doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? How can a rock land in it? He's saying something. So, those were the nuggets that we learned on the journey. But a moment that really struck me was when Frankie and I were in Monticello and then the University Jefferson built. And I was giving a lecture at the university. We had a huge audience, packed audience, professors and scholars from the University Jefferson built. And I told them, I said, how many of you know about the statue of Jefferson which defines him, which is on this campus? And I was very surprised to see not many hands going up. So I said, put up your hands, those who actually visited that statue. And I think apart from 2 people, no one really put up their hands. So I said, why don't we do this, that after my talk we'll follow you to and go and see the statue, and everyone sees it because it's so important for America. Now here's the statue. There's Jefferson, and there's an angel. So Jefferson and an angel holding a tablet. And the tablet says religious freedom, 1786. Note the year, 1786. And now step back and think to yourself, what is happening in the world in 1786? Take a look around you. Fly in your imagination all across the globe. In Europe, kings are saying we are descended from God. The Sun King. France. Further east, the Emperor of Japan, the Emperor of China, actually they say we are God. Because all our ancestors were God. How do you treat people? You treat them like dirt. So when they come to meet the Emperor, they have to crawl. Face down, they have to crawl because they are not equal to the Emperor. They are servile, they are below the Emperor. How are the minorities being treated? Terribly. How are people of other faiths being treated? Terribly. Kill them all, wipe them out. Doesn't matter, human beings only. And here's Jefferson with his angel proclaiming a message of religious freedom. Simple, just 2 words. And under those 2 words was this remarkable list. It really shook me to see it. And I told Frankie, and he testified to that, I said, don't just see the date, see the names below religious freedom. It says God. And God, of course, is God of Christians, though it's the same thing, divinity is divinity, but Christian would call him God. Under God it said Yahweh, that's the God of the Jews. Then it says Allah. And I said, my God, 1786. I'm sure there wasn't one Muslim in Monticello, and yet Jefferson is already thinking of how to embrace the world. And then below that, and that really stunned me, he said Brahma, the Hindu God. I mean, can you imagine anyone in 1786 thinking like this? And when he's asked to prepare the script for his tombstone, he meant, what are the greatest 3 things you want to be remembered by? Very difficult. You know, you may say, I was a great mom, I was a great dad, all these are great things. I wrote a book, I made a film, or whatever you achieved in life. He does not mention that he was President of the United States. It's incredible, this man. Do you talk about mystics and Sufis and philosophers? That is your great mystic and philosopher. And I can talk about Sally Hemings and so on later, but this man is at a different plane. The 3 things he mentions are the great pride, the university he's created, the Statute of Virginia, which says exactly this about religious freedom. That the heart of America, this new America that they're creating, the founding fathers, is the concept of religious pluralism. Now this is the battle we as Americans, I'm a proud American, you're proud Americans. This is the great battle for us in the 21st century. Because in a sense, we've regressed from Jefferson. We are dividing ourselves up. We're saying, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like the color of your skin, I don't like your religious beliefs. Go back, go home wherever you came from. Let's divide ourselves up. And that division is very dangerous. Because the more you divide people, you know, as I've lived through this, it's a slippery slope. First you go after one community and say, okay, that's it. And that's why Islamophobia is so dangerous. You begin with Islamophobia, oh, they're so alien. Then you go to the next community. It could be the Jewish community, it could be the Catholic community. Hate is hate. It doesn't stop. It's like a raging fire. And that's where Jefferson comes in. Where you embrace all communities and say that we are part of the same race. You may have different ideas, different faiths, but we can still live together in peace. But that was a new concept. Brilliant, bold concept. 200 years later, here we are sitting, we are still not fully grappling with it. We haven't put our minds around it. Maybe it's too advanced for us. Maybe we need more Jeffersons. Maybe we need to have a president like Jefferson in the White House. Bernie has said, I'm back, on television. So consider these big issues. I don't have answers, I can only ask questions as a scholar. But to me, we are going through a very, very interesting phase of our history. It's also a dangerous phase because if somehow we fail to grapple with these issues, there is real danger. Remember, countries like America fight civil wars. Lives are lost. In the American Civil War, how many people died? Over 500,000. Americans killing Americans. In the English Civil War, 200,000. So many, there's just too many lives. You can't have that kind of killing in this day and age because our weapons are much more deadly. So these are questions for us to ponder, to think and to discuss and share these ideas so that we hopefully move towards a resolution. But as it stands, it cannot go on. You cannot have a besieged White House and a White House that is not giving you these great ideas that we are talking about, which are inspired by the founding fathers. I don't see any reflection of that. I'm here in this country by choice. I had to choose when I was High Commissioner, when I finished my post, I had to decide, do I settle in England? I could settle there, go to Canada, go to any part of the world. But my wife and I sat down and we said, without thinking, without pausing, we said, America is the country for us. We'd been here, I'd been at the Institute for Advanced Study many, many years ago, Harvard many years ago, and I loved being here. My wife loved being here. And my wife put it very well. She said, that's the only country where anyone is welcome and we are so welcome. And Americans are like that. Our experience was that in England, our very warm friends, our neighbors, very distinguished friends, but they would constantly say, how are you, Ahmed? How are you enjoying that? When are you going back? So this was the question they had. They didn't mean that go home, but it's an English thing. And by the way, they would say that to Americans also, which we experienced, frankly, in Cambridge. But the Americans would be the opposite. They were very warm, welcoming. They'd say, if you said we are going back, they'd say, why are you going back? Don't you like us? Don't you want to stay in our beautiful country? We want to share it with you. So this was the difference. That's also under change and compromise. So don't lose what really make you Americans, the great virtues of being American. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Timothy, please.
Morning.
Hi.
Timothy's our pastor here, by the way.
Oh, Pastor.
Yeah.
Thank you,
with us
Pastor,
last night.
for allowing us to speak here.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. In my adult life, from when I became an adult to now, the perception of Islam in the United States went from being a fairly nonpartisan thing, and really most people probably didn't think a lot about it, to now being a very kind of bifurcated partisan thing. Do you have any suggestions of how the United States can, or what roles we might have to move to a place where Islam is not a bifurcated partisan way of looking at it, but into a broader acceptance and affirmation?
Thank you, Timothy. Or should I say